And welcome to the Eli Sports Network. And we've got a little special report here. We're going to step in and talk with the executive board president right now, Greg Whitmore. Or are you still president officially? I know Tim Thompson is going to take over that spot for you.
Wait, is this Paul from Eli Sports? Oh, gosh, I thought my secretary said it was Jimmy Kimmel. This is much bigger than that, so cool. Yeah, that's kind of a weird deal too, Paul. I'm usually done. June 7th is our last meeting, and but technically my term goes, I don't know, August 1st to July 31st. So I'm still on the docket as president, and we're going to have as many meetings as we need to work some of the details out coming up for fall sports.
Well,
sure.
let's start with that. As you know, I've been in contact quite a bit with Mick Hoffman and Mick and his staff and your staff and the board. I can tell you this: I've talked to a lot of coaches and a lot of athletic directors, and they have had nothing but high praise for the WIA in communicating and getting the information out. And you guys have been, really transparent in trying to get that information out as quick and as much as you can. Unfortunately, as we all know, you can only, and that's the frustrating thing is that we just have to wait for a lot of this. There's so much planning that has gone into it. But let's start with what you guys did. I guess technically Sunday, right? Was that during
just yesterday was our last meeting.
Oh, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, you've gone ahead and pushed fall sports back 2 weeks. So tell us what that kind of means.
Yeah, so I mean, anytime we make a decision like that, it's tough. We're certainly aware that there's some anxious kids out there, student athletes, some that lost their spring sports already. Certainly the seniors are probably the most. I know my seniors are the most anxious, and anytime you tell them that something's been put off or canceled or delayed or whatever, it's a letdown for them, and it's disheartening for them. And we're trying to be aware of that, but we're also trying to make the best decisions we can. That takes pressure off schools, athletic directors, leagues that may have to reschedule something. So we kind of moved that decision up just a little bit. None of us in the room believed that we were going to actually get off to that normal start on August 19th. So why would we delay that decision? It was kind of our thinking. And you know, Paul, I say it's kind of like when I'm coaching football and people ask me, what's the fall going to look like? And I say, well, it's kind of like if you ask me, what play am I going to call in the fourth quarter of a football game, right? I don't know. I mean, I've got these plays that we've practiced and I'll have those contingency plans, but I won't know until that situation in the middle of the fourth quarter comes up. And that's where we're at now. Of course, we're writing the playbook right now. That's the problem. We don't have that experience. So
talking to a lot of your cohorts, athletic directors, knowing that, and like Shane Nixon with Fife talked with not too long ago, he says, look, I'm done planning. There's nothing more I can do until we know more. And like he said, there's really nothing we can do until we get there. So the next big benchmark, so to speak, is July 21st. That'll be your next meeting. And as Mick explained that to us last week, in fact, he says, out of that meeting, we hope, as we, the executive board, and to be able to announce, and as he put it, what we hope to do, and now not August 19th, but starting September 5th. He said, unfortunately, if we have any for sure's, it'll probably be in the negative side, that we will know for sure. If we have any for sure's, then we will know for sure we can't do this or we can't do that. Even if we hope to do it, we still won't know a final answer probably for another couple of weeks into early August.
Exactly. And hope is the word, and that's what everyone's trying to stay as hopeful. And we know that. And so our staff is working incredibly hard. And between now and that July 21st meeting, we have a committee of not only our staff, Mick and some of the board members, but also, superintendents, principals from member schools, athletic directors. So, and in these 2 weeks, we'll try to put together some more options. So what happens if we have to move back beyond September 5th, September 7th? Are all sports the same, or the low risk sports? What phase are we going to be in, and so it gives us 2 weeks. And that's kind of what we found out clear back in April, that we really couldn't make any decisions beyond 2 weeks. And we probably needed to meet in 2 weeks to get the latest data, the latest statistics, and make a decision then. But yeah, then it's just you hope that you don't have to move it back or delay it anymore. But we'll have a lot of more contingency plans, and on 21st we'll choose from some of those the next best scenario.
Well, and again, and I know I've touched on this, but we never know when someone is going to see something for the first time. It simply is not just about when you can get kids back on the field. When you start thinking about it, when you start thinking about putting on a season, I saw where WOA is saying they're going to be short 30%, up to 30% of their officials. Who's driving the bus? These tend to be older folks. Are they even going to be wanting to put themselves in that risk? And of course, how many can you even get on a bus? And how far can you travel? There's so much that goes into it outside of just playing that people forget about. You can't play a game without officials, but yet if the older, and I think I've heard the number about the average age of an official, 50 to 55, which means you have older ones that just may not, health-wise, they go, I'm not going to risk it. I just can't risk it. I don't need to get sick like that. And so I can't do it until there's a treatment or there's a vaccination. And so we're going to lose some of those. And so how do those numbers ultimately, and this is where you guys as the athletic directors have to guess, well, how many officiating crews are we going to have available? How many games can we play in a night? Or are we going to have to stagger nights and things like that? So much to go into this.
Exactly. There's questions we don't even know yet. And that's why it is good to involve so many stakeholders in our state, because we may make a decision that may be good for us here at Ritzville, but it's not good for Sumner. So yeah, 30% of our officials, we weren't flush with officials anyway, right? We've been altering our junior high schedules, our high school schedules, playing more on Thursday night, changing JVs. So certainly when you're going to lose maybe 30% of that pool, that's already a little bit low, that's concerning. So it's not even going to be as easy as changing our league schedule. We've lost 2 regular season games by moving it back to September 5th. And the earliest you could play is on a Friday or even a Saturday with the maximum number of practices. And so you can schedule it, you can pencil it in, but are there going to be enough officials? Do we need a 4-person crew? Are we going to have to play some day games? So yeah, there's things, gosh, Paul, we haven't even been able to touch yet.
Yeah, and then you're hesitant to put in too many hours planning it when you don't even know if you're going to be allowed to do it. And right now, it's not. 2 weeks ago, I was very optimistic. It looked like things were going, and man, it sure changed on a dime, didn't it? It just flipped around, and I can't say that I'm real optimistic about it right now. To be honest, Greg, me, just an outside observer, I don't know how you're going to get football done in the fall. I really don't. I just don't.
Right. Yeah. And, it's people ask me how I feel about things. I said, well, it depends on what hat you want me to wear. I'm head football coach. I'm the athletic director, involved in the WIAA. And so, yeah, and it changes so rapidly. And I'll tell you, our staff is incredible. They are on a time when they should be taking their vacations right now, even after between winter basketball, state championships, and spring, they should get some breaks. They didn't get one break. Right now, they should be on break, but they're busy putting contingency plans together, knowing that 99% or 100% of them aren't even going to come to fruition. So our staff is unbelievable right now, and I'm worried we're burning them out. So we got to find a break for them. But I mean, we're all working tirelessly. It's what we do on behalf of kids. And we're just, again, hopeful that one of these plans plays out and kids
Yeah.
can get meaningful experience, that senior night, their senior season, and those looking on to go on to the next level. It's even very important to them too. So yeah, it's unprecedented times, obviously.
Even with this now, the optimistic side of me says that golf, tennis, cross country, maybe moving track or part of track to fall, and maybe a fast pitch or a baseball or something like that. I think that might be the top end. That's just my gut feeling. But I do think some of the tennis, golf, cross country for sure are, I think it would really have to be bad for those not to be able to be played, I think, anyway. That's my impression. Again, it's just a personal impression, because I think, like with golf, you can even get down to twosomes to make sure that they're outside and they can stay apart, and that's not an issue. Cross country, you can stagger. It's going to make for a longer event, but you can stagger, to make sure. And the coaches know the order that their kids should be running in, so one's not going to even pass the other on a good staggered start there. And in tennis, maybe you even play just singles only in every other court or something along those lines. I think those sports are going to, I think it's really going to have to be bad not to be able to get back, at least do some of those things. And I know I've heard everything. I've heard, the WIA says they're not going to flip any sports. I go, I don't think that's true. I don't think they've kicked any idea off the table at all. And any type of competition is going to be welcome as soon as possible. Is that basically the position of the board?
No, that's exactly right. And there's been times that we were pretty, we were looking into that option, moving fall to spring, spring to fall, whatever we needed to do. And after a while, we heard some problems with that, and we know there will be problems if you do that. And so we haven't focused on it too much. But as we see some other states doing that, New York is one that Mick is looking into, and see some promising ideas. And we're not above stealing ideas, at least to see if they can be fit in ours. So
that's my whole business. My whole business, Greg, is stalling. So
yeah. So it's so everything's on the table. You're exactly right. Whatever it takes to create some of these meaningful experiences. And as far as, tennis and cross country and those, it's kind of how they're labeled as low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. And we're not really in charge of all that. We're talking about, I know tennis has been listed as, hey, you can't, you can't even practice tennis right now, and there can't be any touching of implements and everything else without disinfecting. And I'm trying to have some football workouts here, and I can't throw a football around. So we're really a little bit at the mercy, waiting for more guidance from our state health department, maybe some more from the NFHS, and hoping that some things might be relaxed a little bit, so we can get those lower risk sports where there's not big crowds. You can spread them out, the gatherings and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely we're not a one size fits all, one sport or none, or everyone starts here, starts there. We're not even same county to county. We're not,
right.
Which goes against kind of everything that we have stood for in equity and all that. So it's a little bit outside the comfort zone, but as many kids as we can provide a healthy education-based activity, we're gonna try to reach them no matter what.
And as Mick said earlier in our interviews, he said, look, we're at the worst place we are right now. There is nothing going on. We can't get any worse than this. So anything above that is the priority. He says, if I'll use Centray and Chehalis, if Centray and Chehalis are clear to play each other, and that's the only team that they can play, let them play 8 or 10 times and do the best that you can to make that as good of and experience as you possibly can, whatever it is. And then let's build from there. Hopefully we can at least, some districts can get in some competition, whatever those sports may be. And then hopefully the district, and then hopefully there's a state level that we can get to. But again, I think it's really important for people to understand that, no idea has been dismissed at this point. And I think that's really important to point out. One thing, Greg, is that I've been hearing even, especially with the upper classifications, of moving football to spring, and that they wouldn't move necessarily anything else back, because the fear would be if you move spring to fall that they wouldn't be able to play again. Well, I guess I would say that I would still look to do that, even if you're planning on moving fall to spring. And then if you can't play baseball, well, you were going to have it on top of baseball anyway. Well, move it back to spring and say, let's at least give baseball and fast pitch a shot if we can, to get them in wherever and whenever we can first, in track and those spring sports. Just,
Sure.
and I'm sure you guys have talked about everything.
Well, I wouldn't say everything, but we certainly were racking our brains to try to think of everything. But no, you're exactly right. And of course, if we just made the wholesale change, let's move spring sports, track, baseball, softball to fall, their concern is, well, wait a second, we just lost one season and now COVID is still not looking good. So we're going to lose 2 seasons in a row. So they're worried about that. And I get that. There's also issues that I haven't even thought about. Certain districts have certain contract issues and coaching issues if you moved a spring sport to a fall sport, and facility issues so there'd be things that we just have to bring all the stakeholders in, so they make sure that we're aware of the unintended consequences. But like Mick and I were talking, if you move track, let's just take track, or maybe you just take field, the
Yeah.
field events or whatever it may be, but start them in the fall. And if we get canceled or shut down, say, hey, don't worry, we'll try to salvage something in the spring again.
Yeah.
There's obviously things that we're going to have to do as a board, that to give waivers to some of our policies, allowing maybe athletes to participate in 2 sports at the same time. We know that, and we'll be flexible enough to do that, not risking kids' health, but doing anything again that just allows them to have that experience.
Is there, because I think California has talked about this, of not even starting sports until after the holidays in January, where they would look at maybe doing winter sports January, February, and fall sports March, April, and spring sports May, June, in a condensed fashion, so they all get a chance to play, but clearly a lot shorter schedule.
Yeah, and well, one of our contingencies, it would be, again, one of our later ones, is starting spring sports, starting any sport January 4th, I think it is. And so our staff has put together a schedule now that each sport would overlap, and you obviously wouldn't start football on February 4th. You'd probably go with basketball, and you'd have to readjust which events you're playing, and kids would have to be allowed to play 2 sports or possibly practice 2 sports at the same time. Probably wouldn't get over. I think our contingency plan would go to June 26th. So there's nothing ideal about it, but that's one of our contingency plans, just to try to fit it all in. And then we have a group again working these next 2 weeks to try to put some other dates. If September 5th doesn't work, what's the next increment that maybe we move back? Do we move it back 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And then what's the latest we could move back football or the fall sports before we say, no, we just can't have football?
And the other thing that I think you have to look at is simply this, is what are the low risk sports? And maybe all of them will have to be done in the fall, and say, this is our chance to get them done and get those seasons in. And then that will leave, winter and spring for the moderate and high risk sports, where we can intertwine them. And it may be just of what is going to be allowed. Instead of just switching seasons, it may not even be that. It may be going from the risk level that you're able to get them in.
No, that's exactly right. And we know the one thing we know for sure, it's not going to be ideal. And the other driver, Paul, and you hate to even bring it up, but it's reality. Football and basketball and volleyball to some extent are revenue generators for high schools and for our association. And so you cut those revenue sports out, then all of a sudden ASBs are really hurting, and that could take a couple years to recover. Our association hurts, and then our services that we can provide to schools. So it's just a fact that we have to kind of play that in and do all we can to. And that's why I guess football a lot of times and basketball, those are even tougher decisions to make. But in the end, there's those kids out there that they're just as passionate about cross country and golf
Yep.
as a kid that puts on a basketball uniform or a helmet. So it doesn't matter. They're all unbelievable experiences that we just have to honor and get them in somehow for these kids.
Well, I know Mick said it best. He said he can't wait for the emails to come back complaining about something that happened in a game or how something was completely unfair. He says, I never thought I would look forward to those type of emails again, but
Yeah.
that's what he'd like to get back to. And I
And
assume you too.
well, yeah, and someone said, "God, wouldn't it be great if we had some ejections coming in?" Or I said, "Well, no, I won't go quite that far, but if we had those, at least we know we're playing it." And yeah,
That's the point. Yeah.
and in these rough times, you always want to try to find some silver linings. And I guess one thing is, Paul, you kind of mentioned it earlier that communication was a big goal of ours, focus of Mick's and mine as the president this year. And some of this pandemic and these Zoom meetings and some of the stuff we communicated with well over 200 ADs every Wednesday in a session that we set up. And so now we've learned because we've been forced to communicate in a different way, and we'll be able to take that on when we do get back to whatever normal is. And so I do feel really good about athletic directors, member schools, the WIAA, district directors, all the stakeholders, even parents and student athletes we're working together. I know it's cliche, we're all in this together, but we're all feeling the harmful effects of this together. We're all hopeful together. And like I said, our staff and our board is just working tirelessly on behalf of kids. And so I can't say enough about our staff.
I'll leave it at this, Greg, and I'll say this. I don't care what anyone's personal belief is or their belief in whatever rights they think. If indeed we want high school sports back, we just know this. It's plain and simple. The curve has to get flattened. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So how's the best way to do that? Is
Exactly.
it to put on a mask and just, understand that this is for a short-term, time period and get those numbers to come back down so we can get some competition. And frankly, not only kids on the field, kids in classrooms again, because that's at stake as well. And
Exactly. That's issue of its own. And you're right, Paul. In my first few days as I met with our kids after June 19th and we could start meeting with kids a little bit, we just had that mindset talk and say, hey, we know the world is making everything political and there's you're taking my civil rights away and this and that, but here's what we know that we've got to do. We know with vaccines, it's the only sure way we can get back, and that's not going to happen for a while. So we know the next best way is, or at least science tells us, it's distancing and masks. So let's do all our part, whether we agree or disagree with it, whether we think we're sick or not, whether we think we're going to spread it or not. That's what it's going to take for us to play the game we love and get back to that. So yeah, it's kind of a mindset, and that's kind of my message to people is, hey, let's do our best to get back for the kids' sake.
washing your hands regularly, does that really hurt you? No, that might be a good habit to be in anyway. A little
Yeah,
more distance in between people and putting a cloth over that. Those are the three things you're being asked to do. It's
yeah,
not hard. It
hard
doesn't matter if you
thing.
agree. Just do it. It's simple. Let's see if we can get this thing down, and let's get something out on the fields, and let's get kids. And again, it's very likely in a lot of school districts that it's going to look different this year. No question about that, whether it's a partial day or a couple of days a week or some type of staggered system where high school, facilities can utilize their, all their rooms but have to cut down on the population to have that done. I hope that we can at least do that and get kids back in interacting with teachers and what have you, and that's going to lead. I mean, because there is a big question: if students are not allowed in school buildings, why would the state allow any type of athletic competition to go forward?
Exactly. That would
That's a
make
real
much sense.
possibility.
No, you're exactly right. Even if it's an AB every other day online learning, what's that going to look like for everyday practices in sports? So yeah, yeah. Again, a moving target. You've heard it so many times, and we'll make another play call here in a couple weeks when we know a little bit more. And yeah, hopefully we're feeling a little bit better in 2 weeks about which direction the virus is going and some of the guidance that we're given and all that, and make a decision that even increases our optimism a little bit.
Absolutely. Greg, thank you so much for jumping on and giving us another update. I know people appreciate it. I know people are frustrated, but at least, as we get more information, we're going to share this, whether you can jump on, or Mick, or Andy Barnes, or Cindy Adsit, or BJ Kuntz, and they've all done a great job in helping, keep us informed on what you guys are facing. And again, folks, just understand it's a hurry up and wait kind of situation. We just have to see where we are. So hopefully everyone will do their part. Greg, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And of course, Greg is the athletic director over there at Lynn Ritzville Sprague, and the WIA executive board president until the end of the month, at least. And has done a terrific job in leading the WIA over the last couple of years. Greg, thanks again, and we'll talk with you again soon.
Thanks, Paul. Pleasure. And yeah, see you after the 21st, right?
You got it. You got it. And thank you for tuning in to this special report on the Eli Sports Network.